Beautiful being. I'm in my back garden because as soon as I opened the front door to go out to the front garden, somebody started a chainsaw. And I still really want to be outside, but I didn't want to be right next to the chainsaw. So I'm here, and the Wi-Fi isn't so strong out here, so I can't wander around quite as much and show you things. But I can still do this. So we've got late flowers on the rose. I'm just going to zoom in because I don't want to lose the connection. So it's not like the spring, covered with everything, but it's still beautiful. I pruned this part of it. It's all cleaned up. This whole piece here I'm actually going to take off, but I just couldn't stand to cut it off while it was flowering, so it's just going to stay there. And I know it's been ages. Look at the hydrangeas. Most of the blooms have gone purple because they've finished, but I leave them on because I like them, and there's still some blue ones as well. And I'm just really panning slowly across the garden so you can see it's been a while. I know everything is growing here. We haven't had much of a summer really. I'm not complaining that it hasn't been dry, but I'm kind of hoping it'll dry out a little bit in the next month because I'd like to get my mulching done. You can see I've been pruning. See up the back there, there's just little sticks and things. That plant needed to be cut back. It's like every Tom, Dick and Harry's out here being noisy at the minute. And the best thing at the moment is this circle garden, which has all the belladonna flowering in it. I'll just zoom in a little bit more so you can see. Aren't they gorgeous? So, and I'm enjoying the golden elderberry, the colour. I never get tired of that. And you can see that the hebees that all got pruned are coming back. They do that. And there's a cabbage tree. It's pretty still today. Doesn't take much wind to move those leaves, and they're not really moving, hardly at all. So this is the back garden. It's had a lot of pruning. These trees here, there's actually two of them. There's one, and behind them is the other one. Got heavily pruned, and they've come back because that's what happens when you do that to acacias. And this, my magnolia that I planted years ago, is now a tree. It's no longer a sapling. It's taken a while, but there it is. This one's the same. It was tiny and now it's quite big. And we still... Hi Jocelyn, it's great to see you. I'm just outside of my really noisy backyard, not going far from the back door because the Wi-Fi out here isn't too good. But see, there's still lemons on the tree. I just wanted to enjoy those because they're beautiful. So I'm going to go inside now. Just wanted to get out and show you some stuff. Oh, actually, I'm going to show you these two because I can get close. See, look at all my scruffy garden stuff. But look at the golden feverfew. It's lovely. I really enjoy this, and you can see it's been raining. So you can see the raindrops. The foliage is so bright and colourful. I really enjoy that. And I actually really like that I've put the Boston ferns here. And they'll just always be nice. All of this bare ground that's got occasional weeds in it has actually got spring bulbs. And it won't take long before they start coming up. Right now, I'm going to go inside and talk to you about what I've been doing today, writing for God of Me, and writing about manifestation and entrainment. And yes, this is my scruffy lounge. My scruffy laundry. This is my lounge. My lounge has messy bits in it because there's a bit of upheaval here at the moment. But my lounge is quite pretty, so I like that. I've got squeaky shoes. So I'm here today talking about entrainment, which most people think, what the heck is that? That sounds really boring. Excuse me. I have not... Sorry about that. I got to get the little standy thing. I got a ring stand on the back of my phone, and I forgot to pull the thing out before I started. So, I've been writing about and talking about resonance for the last couple or 3 weeks, and now I want to talk about entrainment. Now, I started entrainment last week because entrainment is what you see when stuff actually manifests. So although you might think, oh, that's a word that I don't recognise, that must be boring, it sounds scientific, it's actually really interesting because this is the how-to. This is how you do it. And this is actually how I believe the masters did it. You know, Jesus and Buddha and all of those people that we think of as being miracle workers, saints, that I believe that this is literally how it happens. So I've talked about resonance and how resonance is when one thing makes another thing pretty much play the same tune. Hi, Jeanette. Lovely to see you. And it's a lot of us are familiar with, if you have a wine glass, you have two wine glasses and they're the same shape and size, and you wet your finger and you run your finger around the top of one and you make it sing, and the other one will sing all by itself. And that's because the sound waves that are produced by this wine glass when it's singing actually bang up against the other one and drive it, kick it, push it into resonance. And it works because they're the same shape and the same size. And this frequency here that has a natural resonant frequency, and it's the same as this one's natural resonant frequency, and one drives the other into resonance. That driving process is entrainment. And I realized that if I am going to try to explain how I believe it is possible for us to literally pull things out of thin air, and I have to keep telling myself that this is true because people do it. And I don't mean just 2,000 years ago. I mean now. Well, then, if this is the how-to, let me unpack this properly. So, the thing about resonance, we can all play with wine glasses if we have them, but that's cool. But if I am hungry and I want a piece of bread, why can't I think bread and have it appear in my hand? Because that's useful. A wine glass going, is all very nice and pretty. But I'm hungry. Why can't I manifest a piece of bread that I can eat? Okay? This is a fundamental question that I think a lot of us don't even realize we're asking. Is, why is this so hard? Why can some people do it and why can't I? And in case you wonder about people doing it now, there's a gorgeous man that I finally connected with on Facebook because I happened to find him. But I first observed or knew of this chap who's just a very ordinary guy, by the way. He drives a digger and he works in construction. He lives in Ontario somewhere. His name is Tony, and he has a little, 3 or 4 minute video that's in Dr. Joe Dispenza's Stories of Transformation playlist. And he must have, become a student of Dr. Joe and went to one of his events. And at the events at that time, they did processes where they actually manifested stuff out of nowhere. And this happened, right? It wasn't just one person or two people. People kept doing it. And he wanted to manifest a $20 Canadian note, $20 Canadian dollar note. And what was interesting was that he did his walking meditation and he picked up a half a note. It was like, oh, this is interesting. And he thought, why did I get that wrong? And whatever. And he just carried on doing what he was doing. And he had this experience where he did his meditation in the morning on this particular day, and he was just totally in the zone, just like, this was amazing. He felt amazing, had a great time, and he went to work, and he just did his work, and he sat down and had his lunch, and he took off his boots and put them and he made sure the ground was clear. He put them on the ground. He took off his jacket and sat down and ate his lunch, just feeling full of gratitude and having a great time, just being happy, because he's a happy guy. And when he picked up his, when he put on his jacket and picked up his boots to put them on, underneath the boots there was a $20 Canadian note. No bull. It wasn't there when he put the boots down, and it was there afterwards. It materialized. Now that is a modern example of entrainment, where this idea that he has had has literally entrained into matter. It does happen. This is the point I'm making. It's not just thousands and hundreds of years ago, not even just last century, all of which examples we have. That's like, last year and now. So anyway, this is why entrainment is important. So, and why can we not all do it if actually it's being done? And so entrainment is what makes that wine glass drive the other wine glass into resonance. It's the reason why resonance works. So let me just, before I go off sideways, let me go to the Because I wrote things down, and sometimes I just wing it. Excuse me. Got a tickle. But often I try not to. So, what do these people know that the rest of us don't? And why does it take time? You know, Jesus got a crowd of 5,000 people to feed. The disciples say, well, you know, we've got 5 fishes and a couple of loaves of bread, and what the hell are we going to do with all that? And he just smiles at them and gives thanks because he knows he's got it sorted. And he breaks the bread, and he keeps breaking it, and he gives it out to his disciples. And by the way, there are other stories, more recent, told of people doing exactly the same thing. And he said, you can do exactly the same as me and greater. They all of these so-called masters, these saints, these people, they said, you can do the same thing. Well, what do they know that I don't, that you don't? This is what I'm trying to unpack for myself in my own crazy little way, thinking, well, it must be possible because people keep doing it. So what I know is that normally when we think about something we want, there is always a gap between us thinking about what we want and having it appear. Very occasionally you have a thought and then, you know, it turns up the next day and that's really cool, but it's kind of like this happy accident. That's quite different from thinking, I want bread, and there it is. So why is this so hard, and, you know, what's going on? So, entrainment, right? What is entrainment? Okay. And I, of course, went straight to the example that I've seen, I've learned about this in a different way from Dr. Joe. And there's a great video that he has in one of his workshops, which you can also find on YouTube. And it is a video of 32 metronomes, and they're on this table. And the video starts, and you see these metronomes, 4 rows of 8. And these hands just coming from the side and start all the metronomes swinging. And the metronomes are all set at the same height. They're all swinging at the same speed, but they're, you know, every which way. It's disorder. It's chaos. And over about 4 minutes, you see all of these metronomes slowly get organised until they're all swinging backwards and forwards together. Like, what the hell's going on? That's entrainment. And so I'm starting to unpack it. And what I had to, and this is the thing I wanted to make clear, because, I mean, that's very cool, and you think, oh, that's great. But I think, well, how does that work? And if you've been watching for a little while, or listening for a little while, or even reading for a little while, you know that a little while ago, I talked about a physics experiment that I did, I think when I was 15 or 16, I don't know. And it was my first real understanding experience of an interference pattern. And I was at school, and, you know, we had this tray of water and 2 little motors that went like this. And, you know, when you have, it's got a finger on the end of it, and it taps the water, and of course it makes these expanding circles. If you have one of them, you get all these expanding circles. But if you have 2 doing that, you get a pattern, and it appears to be standing still. And it was my first experience of standing waves and interference patterns. And I thought back to that, and I thought, well, if you have a metronome and it's doing this thing going tick, 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 it's setting a rhythm. But that tick is sound, and sound is a wave. And just like the mechanical motor taps the water and it makes these expanding circles, the sound goes out from the metronome in the same way. Okay, now we've got expanding circles going out from these 32 metronomes. But the thing is, they're not all going out in a synchronized, organized fashion. They're going out all higgledy-piggledy. Regardless of that, sooner or later, you know, a wave goes up and a wave goes down, and a wave goes up and a wave goes down. If you have more than one wave, and they're coming from different directions, sooner or later, some of the peaks are going to meet when they're both at a peak, and some of the troughs are going to meet when they're both at a trough, and in other places, the waves are going to cancel each other out. You know, you get a high bit and a low bit, and they meet and they just go to 0. But when you get a peak that adds up, and it's in this situation where you've got all of these different frequencies going on, or all of these different, it's the same frequency because it's the same speed, but it's all out of phase. What happens is that eventually some of those sound waves are going to meet and they're going to stack up, just like the standing waves in my physics experiment, and just like the standing waves that we saw really, it's still standing waves, when we were looking at cymatics and how sound was affecting waves and flames of gas and all kinds of things. It was sound that was influencing how matter was behaving. So you have these waves going out from the metronomes, and there will be places, even randomly, where the waves stack up, and then you have a more powerful wave. And what happens is that where the waves stack up, either where the peak gets higher or the trough gets deeper, there's more energy. It adds to itself. It's like two voices singing together instead of one on its own. And if you imagine 32 different voices, and it's all chaos and you can't hear anything, but if two of those voices start talking together, that's going to be louder. And so it's a bit easier to hear that one. And then those voices keep talking together. And then what literally happens, and this is the piece that I need to explain, that I'm just starting to unpack now. It seems to have taken forever to do this, but that's just the journey, is that those peaks that stack up or those troughs that stack down, they have more energy because it's combined, like more than one voice, and they literally beat and kick and organize eventually the other waves, like they push back. So if you imagine, here's two metronomes that are swinging together, and this one's out. The waves coming from this, which are traveling through the air as sound waves, are more powerful than the waves that this one's making on its own. And they literally, these stronger ones, literally bang against the one that's all on its own and push it into phase with the others. So now you have three. That's literally what happens. That's entrainment. But the thing is, you watch it and it takes time. And so the connection that I'm slowly making, explaining, if you like, because I understand that this is what happens, and I experience this is what happens. Don't think that I'm good enough to hold out my hand and manifest an emerald in it yet. But that's something I've been imagining for on and off for years, because it was just a thing that I was playing with. Wouldn't it be fun to be able to do that? But I can make changes in my emotions within quite a short space of time if I have an opportunity, and sometimes that extends to my body. It's really interesting because I'm getting better at this, and it is about entrainment. So where was I? So the stronger and more coherent energy adds up, gets stronger. It literally pushes other things out of the way and into phase, and it gets organized, and it takes time. And the thing that I was thinking, okay, so, for Tony with his $20 note, I think that, I don't know if it took a week or a couple of weeks. I don't remember. I'd have to watch the video again. Excuse me. But for Yeshua, Jesus, when he thought of materializing bread by just keeping on breaking it off, that was instant. So what's the difference between my mate Tony, who's gorgeous, and, keeps materializing, like things that have been lost, and he's hunted in the same place, and then one day it just turns up in that place that he knows he's looked before. Things just appear, because it's like he's done it once. He knows how to do it again. But Yeshua says, I want bread, and there's bread. But for Tony, it takes a little time. For me, I can't do that at all yet. So what's the difference? And I come to the conclusion that it's about the strength of the resonance. It's about the strength, like the strength of that voice. There were two here and trained the one here, and now we've got three. Well, maybe I'm just one voice. Maybe my mate Tony's like 10, and maybe Yeshua's like 1,000. It's just about the strength of the power of the entrainment, the strength of the frequency that's doing the entrainment. And if you, going back to what I was talking about a little bit before, that if, you're right next to thunder, if you're close to a thunderbolt, the lightning strikes and boom, there are frequencies in that thunder that are powerful enough to make your body vibrate, because you're close by, and there's entrainment. I worked it out. The frequencies are of wavelengths that would couple. They would match up. So This is why entrainment's so important. Because this is how it happens, folks. It's just that most of us, we don't even realise that maybe it's a possibility for us to learn how to do this. We don't know that it's possible, and we don't understand enough about the structure of the field, the void, the source, God, whatever you want to call it, where everything comes from. And we don't realise that the reason that turns into stuff, hi Linda, is because some kind of resonance has been there vibrating and doing its thing for long enough that it entrains that unstructured pure power of the 0-point field, source, God, energy, whatever, into matter. But that is what the quantum physics and the maths are starting to show that actually happens. Oh my God. If we understood that this is actually what happens. It's consciousness. Yes, I don't want to use consciousness, because what the hell is consciousness? And I've kind of learned not to say that from Nassim Haramein, because he says, I don't like to talk about consciousness because we don't know what consciousness is. Really, what is it? We all know that we're conscious, but what actually is consciousness? That's a much harder question to answer. He likes to use the word awareness. So if you have an awareness, like me or you, and you are holding a certain frequency, or like the divine mind, that's an awareness. And divine mind says, I think I'm going to spin a certain frequency here and see what happens. Well, that divine mind is pretty powerful. So it might still take some time, because divine mind's got eternity, so why is it in a hurry? We're much smaller, and we think of ourselves as limited to one lifetime, and the demands of the body are very urgent. I'm hungry, I need to eat. Or I'm thirsty, I need to drink, or I will die in a short time. So it's kind of different being human. But maybe the rules are the same for us, and we just don't understand them. And maybe it's a skill and we can learn it. And this is what it's about for me. This is God of me for me. I don't want to be God of anyone else. I want to be God of me. I want to be boss of my own life and be able to make these choices and know how to do this stuff. And I may never figure it out, but that's not going to stop me asking the questions. It's sure not going to stop me practicing, because the practice that I am doing is actually giving me results. And it's like each step, each increment is so, or occasionally, wow, or hey, I did that. So why would I stop? I might figure it out. And if I do, well, then I'll be a little bit better equipped to try and teach you, if you want to know. Not everybody does. It takes work, but it's a skill. Because I see that people do it, so it must be something that I can learn too. And if I can learn something, I can usually teach it. So there you go. That's what I was writing about today. This is the thinking. This is what's going on in my head. There's a lot more to explain. But after I have done this, to my own satisfaction, I will have explained, for me, how it is that matter comes out of nowhere. Because it does. Because that's what the physics shows us now. And we are so blessed because we get to actually know that. That understanding was not available even 30 years ago. Wasn't available even 10 years ago. The science just wasn't there. And there's still so many questions, because every time you answer a question, you get a whole lot more new questions come out of that. So, we are blessed to have this information, but me, I want to apply it, because it ought to be possible, because people are doing it. They've done it and they're doing it. We're not the first. We won't be the last. And so I am just mad enough to believe that this might be possible for me. And I'm sharing the journey with you. So if you are intrigued and you're thinking, what the hell is she talking about? I'm a little bit interested. Click the link underneath this post. It goes to my Patreon. You can learn a little bit more there about what I'm doing this and why I'm doing it and who it's for. And you can follow for free and get access to a whole ton of good stuff. Or you can support me a little bit and get access to more good stuff. And I'll leave you to figure out what that is. Because it's not hard. You just go to the Patreon page and have a look. You get access to more of my journey and some of the crazy things that I experience as I go. So thanks for listening in. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. your attention and your energy, because that is very precious and it's the only true thing that any of us has to give. So, big love. I'll be back next week with more. Until then, when the slow connection thingy goes away. Bye-bye.